Would like to introduce yourselves?
Good morning, everyone. We are from Bank of Nevada, and our partner, we're partnered with AmeriHome, who is also, we're all under Western Alliance Bank, so kind of complicated. There's many different brands under Western Alliance Bank. Bank of Nevada and AmeriHome are one of them. My name's Patty Hoksbergen. This is June Abbott. Our first session is gonna be, we're gonna talk about what it takes to open a bank account, and then Beth and Lamont are gonna talk about home loans and also small business loans. Just kind of give you a high level of what bankers look at for those types of things. So, in your packet there, the front page should be a pre-assessment. If you could go ahead and pull that out, just take a couple minutes, answer the questions, no judgment here, just do your best, have some fun with it.
That's well thought out in my.
5 minutes or more. Did you stop to think about it?
Depends on your aim. You guys want a couple chairs?
Yeah. Oh, you're not here. Yes, here we go. I don't know.
Okay. Oh, do you need another packet down that way? We've got plenty.
Do we need to?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Here, I got you. Here.
So sorry.
What else do you need?
What else are you missing?
Here.
Is it just one?
And a mouse pad, okay. Beth put her pens out, but you can have yours. You want yours? Yes.
We take
Too
your
cute.
house together. See that. I like how we both are saying that, but you know we both are gonna be sitting here eating it at the end of the day. We're like, we tried so hard.
Appetite suppressant vitamins.
Well, that's I ripped the packaging.
I knew it wasn't on sale for certain. I mean,
Everybody have a chance to go through that, or you need just a couple minutes more? You good? Okay. Let's do a show of hands. Who already has a bank account? Oh, you guys are good.
Yay.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. That's the first step in getting some financial stability there. So let's go ahead. We'll review the answers. Raise your hands if you want to take number one. Which of the following will help you save money? Select all that apply. What'd you guys say? Somebody raise their hand.
Oh, I thought somebody would do that.
I said everything except make an impulse purchase.
Yes.
Let me circle that one.
Good job.
I cheated off of you.
Here you go.
I think,
Oh.
I mean, more coffee.
Don't
I mean, really, if you wanted it for a long time, is it an impulse buy?
You guys are wrong.
Don't cheat off me, apparently. Oh,
Don't
Lord.
look at Melissa's sheet. Number two, why should you save money? Select all that apply.
Everything except for feet.
Correct. Good job. All right. Hey, good throw. What do you need to open a bank account? Number three.
I didn't want this one.
This is a guess, but I said your social security, date of birth, and secondary source of ID.
Yep, and you do need a driver's license as well. Most banks anyway will require 2 forms of ID.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So my parents opened a bank account for me as a child.
Mm-hmm.
How do they do that if they don't have second form of ID or driver's license?
They probably,
me.
they may have had a social security number, and
Birth
there
certificate.
are minor
Oh.
accounts. Yeah, they're minor accounts.
Yeah, it's like my baptism.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
have them for my kids.
And no offense, but back in the day.
Bedrock times.
Things have changed, but yeah, there's the minor accounts
Yeah.
and stuff that you can
Yeah.
open something or it's
Right.
payable.
It was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
No, but I have them for my
Yeah,
kids,
we've
though.
been in banking that long, so
Yeah.
that dates us too.
Can I ask
so.
a question based on that? So, does everyone here have a checking and like debit card? What do you have? I'm just interested to know what everybody starts. So, savings account.
Okay.
Okay. Checking account. Debit card. And a credit card.
That's good.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah.
Good job, you guys. Number 4, select all that apply. Paying yourself first means what?
I'm not gonna say about that.
Everything except B.
I have A and D. Buying personal items is kind of, you're spending before you put something away. And putting money in savings if there's money left. We as bankers always think you should pay yourself first. So even if it's just a small amount, even if your paycheck it's $10 or $20 out of every paycheck, that goes to savings before you pay the bills. And then that Starbucks or whatever might be tempting you at the end of the month. It's like, oh, I put my $20 in savings. I'm not going to do it this time. I'll wait. So, and then number 5, which of the following would be considered a need rather than a want?
Paying rent.
Paying rent. Yep. Good job.
Which one?
Right here.
Since we're so close.
Alright. So we're going to talk a little bit, it looks like some of you've had experience with opening a bank account. We're just going to go into a little bit more detail about what it takes and why your banker might ask for that. One of the things we as bankers think is important is keeping your money in the bank. There's many reasons, and a lot of it has to do with safety. You can't drop that cash out of your pocket and lose it. It's harder for someone to take advantage and steal money. And then also think about if you had a disaster at your home, you had a fire or you had a flood or something like that, you could actually lose your paper money. So that's why most bankers think that's important. Anybody ever use a check cashing place? In a bind? I'm glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that. We really discourage that because they take advantage of folks that don't have a bank account and they charge very high fees to cash a check. So much better to utilize a bank where you're established than walking in there. So a bank can also help you budget money. You keep track of your deposits and also what you spend. Sounds like some of you have experience with that. We'll talk a little bit more in detail later about how to keep track. You'll be asked for a lot of personal information when you go into a bank. If you could pull out the next handout in your folder, there is the new account worksheet. Now this will vary from bank to bank what they ask, but it'll be very similar. I think we talked about this in the quiz that most banks will ask you for 2 forms of ID. So we're looking for a primary ID, so that would be driver's license, state ID card, passport, and then a secondary ID could be like your UNLV ID. It could be your debit card from another financial institution or something similar in nature like that. Like your student ID, does it have a picture on it usually? Yeah, so that's kind of the road the banks go down to identify people. You can open obviously in person at a branch, but a lot of financial institutions are becoming very online savvy. You can open an account online also. Typically, you go in on their website, open an account, and then someone from the office will call you and just verify all your information. And then, have any of you ever done DocuSign? Does that sound familiar? Yeah. So they'll verify you, they send out documents, you digitally sign, and then you're good to go. So,
Did most of you guys open yours online, or did you go into a branch to open the account? Do you remember?
Inside.
Yeah, probably the first time, yeah. So.
Yeah. So the next thing in your packet's just some accounts that Bank of Nevada offers. I think most banks and credit unions will have very similar offerings to that. We kinda encourage everybody getting started to have your checking account and then a savings account, so you can put some money aside that's not quite as easily accessible, and save it for later. Save it for down payment, car payments, whatever might come up, so.
Does anyone have questions about your checking, your personal accounts, things where you should keep it, any of that sort of stuff? Because even as you're looking here, some of them you have to have minimum daily balances, some of them you have to transfer money. Does anyone I mean, we have the experts here, does anyone have any questions on their accounts or?
I do have a question.
Okay.
So most of my bank accounts are tied to my mom's bank account, especially like my credit card account.
Right.
When would be a good time to start looking on like moving away from hers and, you know, doing mine? And does it affect me that I'm under her account?
The only way it would affect you is if there were like maybe some chronic overdrafts or something like that, that could negatively impact whoever's on the account. And I think, you know, a good time to kind of start establishing yourself is probably around 18, you know, get that. That's when you're legally, can do anything as a sole owner on an account. And so I think that's kind of a good spot to go. And then I would, like I said, the checking, the savings, get a debit card. I will say a credit card, but I wanna caution you don't wanna go out and like load that credit card up. First, it's gonna blow your budget, and second, it could impact your credit score. The loan officers will talk a little more about that, but to establish a little bit of credit, if you had, you know, make a small purchase, pay it off at the end of the month. That's what we like to see to kind of build your credit and get started that way.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm a person who forgets to, now I wouldn't say I haven't forgotten any payments yet, rephrase, but I feel like I would. So I'm the type of person, as soon as I spend something, I immediately pay it off. In the eyes of a bank, is it better for a person to pay it off immediately or wait till the end of the month?
I think either way is fine. Another thing that you could utilize is most of the credit cards now have a way that you can make an automatic payment, so you can't forget. And you could set that up for your minimum payment and then pay extra when the statement comes. So that's that reminder, hey, you owe us money, but then go ahead and pay some more on it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I think it's important to set that up so in case you forget, you know, hey, it happens to be finals. And it just totally slips your mind because you've been working on papers, so you don't miss that. But I think it's also as you're, you know, kind of getting started and potentially working paycheck to paycheck, make sure it doesn't bounce. Make sure, you know, that you don't go to overdraft or anything like that, because that can also happen, and then you get all the fees and everything else.
Yeah, and we're gonna touch on that just a little bit as well too, just the importance of making sure you're keeping track and stuff, but yeah.
So,
Good question.
yeah, really good questions, you guys. So once you've established your bank account, there's several ways you can access that. Anybody use specific ways to get to your money that has a bank account right now? What's your favorite way?
Mobile app.
Mobile app. Yep, that's a good one. Debit card's a good one. You have, let's see, what do we have in there? Well, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. The first thing is to make your deposit into your checking account. Once you get a job, most employers these days do electronic payroll deposits. then it goes directly to your account. You don't gonna have to stand in line to put that check in the bank or cash it or whatever you're gonna do with it. Your employer will probably need the account number and then also the bank routing number. Typically, when you open an account, the representative will point that all out to you, so you should have it.
Do you guys know what a routing number is? You know what that is? Okay. Each bank has it's their ID number basically, so if somebody asks for a routing number or an ABA number, that is the number for that bank, and every bank has a specific or credit union or whatever, so, and the bank is able to supply that for you. And actually, you can even look it up online in most cases.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
And then one of my favorite things is mobile banking. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, so a routing number is the number for the bank, sorry, right? And an account number would be their specific number for each account.
Yes, yeah, for your account. So if you have a checking and a savings account, you're gonna have two separate numbers. But but if both of those accounts are at the same bank, then the routing number is gonna be the same.
You know where you find hers?
So,
Mobile app?
Mobile apps? It's I have my mobile app, one shows it, and then another mobile app does it for a different bank. So I didn't know if yours did.
Yeah.
I have one bank.
Yeah, so I didn't know if yours did, yeah.
so everybody in the bank has the same routing number? Or-
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, cause it's the bank's
So,
number.
yeah.
It identifies what bank you're trying to send your money to.
Yeah.
But your account numbers are all gonna be different, like your mom and even though yours might be connected to hers, yours is a separate account number
Yeah.
compared to hers, so yeah.
And if you look at a check, I know a lot of people don't write checks now, the first part of that number is the routing number, and then there's kinda like a semicolon, the last half is your checking account number. So, mobile banking, that's my favorite way to deposit. Has anybody done that where you take a picture of your check, sign it, take a picture of the back? Typically, it goes into your account right away. Sometimes the bank will put like a temporary hold on it, that gives them time to review, but if it's not a huge check, typically it's available that same day. Banks do have some policy around that the government says we have to follow when funds are available, and so a check under $250 is available immediately. If it gets over that, then there could be a little bit of a hold, but your banker will tell you that, and they have to notify you if they've placed a hold. Anybody know what a check hold is? So, June writes me a check for $5,000. I've done some work at her house. I go to put it in my bank account, and they're like, we don't know if June has money over at ABC, so we're gonna hold this, we're gonna put it in your account, but we're not gonna allow you to spend it for 3 days until we know it's cleared June's bank. So, and then you can make a deposit in the branch. Have any of you done that? You had to fill out a little deposit ticket. You have one in your packet there.
We're gonna practice
Yeah. Let's go ahead, and there's some key parts of that you'll need to do. You'll need to put your name on it.
So there's your deposit slips. And I'm gonna give you something for you to fill out.
So you'll want to enter your amount of cash June is giving you there.
As you can tell, it's not real.
Oh,
When I first saw it, it was like.
They're so real.
Can we have some over you?
Yeah, can I get some?
Everybody's like, they work for a bank, I'll bet it's real.
Don't be going and passing these, you'll end up where you don't wanna be. So you would fill out your name, the amount of cash, and then at the bottom, we don't have an account number, so just go ahead and make one up right now. And so when the teller at the window takes this cash from you, there's several key points she's gonna look at. She's gonna look at, does the cash that you've given me and what's on the deposit ticket match? Whose account by name? And then when she puts it into the system, she's gonna make sure that that account number that you've provided matches the name. on the deposit ticket, so some due diligence there.
So if you look, and if you got your cash, and then, you're gonna look over to the side, it's got a place for where it says cash, so that's where you're gonna write your cash at. And then if you had a check as well too, you could put that in there, and then you're gonna total it at the bottom, and then they're gonna give you a receipt for the whole thing. Does that make sense? So I know you guys, are all looking in the hospitality, world and stuff, and so lots of times you guys, might be working someplace where you get tips, right? And that's one of the things we were talking about earlier. It's nice to have cash on hand, but it's also can be dangerous. So you might have to take it to an ATM or take it into a branch to get it into your account and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why we just wanted to show you how to fill that out. And this is what we call a counter deposit slip. So, but if you ask your banker and you have a checking account, they can order you deposit slips and checks so that you have them already filled out and everything.
All right,
So any questions about how to fill one out?
got that?
Good.
Good. So once you've got the deposit in your account, you're eventually gonna wanna take it back out probably to pay some bills. There's a lot of methods you can use. Most banks have an online bill pay, which seems to be kind of the streamlined way to go now. So you log into your online banking. Let's say I have to pay Nevada Energy. The first time I go in, I'm gonna have to put my Nevada Energy account number, the address and that type of thing. Most banks, for large companies like that, it's electronic, so the day you go in and say, hey, I need to send Nevada Energy $50, once you click submit, it usually is to them the same day. Smaller businesses that you have to pay, sometimes a manual check goes out. So it's really important to keep track of, June's got a check register here. That's kind of the old-fashioned way of keeping track of what, how much you have in your bank account and also what you've spent. So in a check register, June will give you a little example there.
So I went ahead and just wrote some make-believe stuff in here, you guys. And as Patty said, this is the old-fashioned way. This is what we grew up before all the electronic stuff. And you would keep a register. But no matter how you decide to do it, whether you do it online or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, you always want to know how much money you have in your account, right? So if you wanted to use this or something similar to this, this is what we do. So you put the, like if your paycheck was $350, you put it in the deposit. And then I went down and wrote, like if you had to go to the dentist, there's a check number 100 and it shows a deduction. And then if you take out an ATM withdrawal, these days, most, like Patty said, most everything is instant. But if you do happen to write a check or send something, like you said, to a smaller business or whatever, it might take a few days to clear. So just because you go in online and look at your balance doesn't always truly mean it's your balance. You gotta really make sure you know what you've got out there, so, okay. Does anybody keep track of their transactions on their accounts? Okay, good. And you guys do you guys have online banking so you can go in and look at that? And have you guys ever paid bills online then as well too? Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys are
You guys
ahead of
are,
the game. Yeah, you guys are way ahead
you
of
guys
the
could teach the class.
Yeah.
Well, and I think especially as you start, a lot of you want to become small business owners, you write more checks, you get more checks, and that's where, in your personal finances right now, usually you can do the mobile deposits, but we get checks that you can't because it's too large, and they won't let us do that, or because of the amount, they hold it for a few days. And so as you get into your businesses, you're sort of like sprinkling your knowledge on it with your own, you might have a lot of money coming in, a lot of cash coming in, but it's really good. So as you move into your business side, that you know all the ins and outs of it, because we get wire transfers, checks, we get all these different payments that we had never used in our personal lives, but now we're like, all right, trying to figure out, things adding up, and we're getting people wire transferring into our account, we have no clue where it's coming from, and so it's really important you figure out all of this before you're trying to figure it out for your business, when you're gonna have a lot of other things on your mind.
Yeah. And speaking of writing a lot of checks, so we put what we call a counter check in here. Does anybody know how to fill out a check?
I hope so. But
Okay.
we're gonna learn.
Well, let's do it. So let's make it, like I said, this is a counter check, but people can still come into the office and we'll pick some of these up if they ran out of checks. But normally it's gonna already have your name and your account number at the bottom, so you don't need to fill that out. But if you're gonna pay to the order of whoever, you can make it payable to a friend or whatever, so you're gonna write that
You can write it
person's
to me.
name in.
I was going to do that.
Well, I was gonna say me, but then I thought, no. Okay, and then, so it's made payable to, and then you gotta write the date in as well too.
Now, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I write the date, first a statement, you can't cash a check after 6 months, correct?
It's considered stale dated, yes, and if you take it in to make a deposit and the teller catches it, then they'll refuse it, but it could still go through.
It could still go through. So if I wrote January, I don't know the date, 16th, 2022, would you all check it, or would I potentially bounce a check?
Okay, so as a business, because when you're making deposits, there's usually a lot of checks, the teller's not going through there and looking at it. It's gonna automatically still go through, as long as the person's account that it's clearing doesn't have an issue, like they said, no, we didn't write the check or something like that, but yeah, cause there's no way that anybody's going through and checking the date on the hundreds of thousands of checks that clear a night, so yeah, so there is that possibility that it would more than normally clear. If you go in and cash a check that says 2022 on it, the teller will probably look at it and go, sorry, this is a year old. But then some people will have a heart and go, all right, we just moved into 2023. How many of us are writing 2022?
I will write 2022 until we get to 2024, when I finally catch up.
Exactly. So if it's in a pile of checks and just being deposited, it's probably gonna go through. If you take it in to cash it, then it's gonna be probably declined.
Because you get checks back from school, from ECF sometimes, remember to cash them in 6 months.
Yeah.
And then Randy, you had a question?
Yeah, what about on the other hand, like writing future dates on it? How does that affect the check at all?
Well, technically, you're not supposed to be, what do we call it?
Post date.
What is it?
Post date.
Oh, yeah, post date. Yeah, if you owe me money and you give me a check and but you don't want me to cash it for a week, yeah. You can still give it to me, and I should not be taking it to the bank and
Until
depositing.
the day of.
But 9 times out of 10, people try to do that, and it messes with your account. So, I wouldn't give somebody the money until I have the money in.
Right.
Because, 9 times out of 10, you'll say, don't cash this till Thursday, and they take it in on Wednesday. And the way checks clear these days, they typically clear overnight. So, if your money's not going in until Friday, you're gonna be having issues, so, yeah. So, I would suggest not posting even, but, anyway, so did everybody get their check filled out?
I have a last question.
Yes.
So, we don't use checks as much anymore, so a lot of times our checkbooks now last for years and years and years. You move, you get married, whatever it might be, what do you do with your name, address? Do you leave it as is? Do you cross it out? Is it still valid?
It's still valid. Have you gone in and updated your bank account, with the bank to show those changes?
I have, but I would assume if you get a checkbook, you're gonna probably have it for 10 years. Like, I can't see you going through those checks anymore.
Yeah. Well, and on your personal
Oh,
side,
yes.
you're probably not gonna want to, you can order small packets, like 40 checks. You don't have to get the 250.
Every time I open a bank account, they send me like 8,000 checks, and I'm like, I still have them with my maiden name of
Yeah.
my first house from 20 years
So do
ago.
I.
Yeah, technically you should just destroy those and get them. Once you've updated the address and the name, at the actual bank, then you should get new checks in that name. If you still have them and you write somebody a check and the account number's good and nothing's changed on that and you got money in the bank, it's gonna still clear. Whether it has your maiden name on it or not.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate you're still writing
This
most of the
may be a
checks.
dumb question because
No,
I don't write
sure.
My
checks.
appointment.
So when you write out like how much it is, you have to put like 00 and then like the slash. What's the reasoning behind that? Because I always forget to do that.
Because it's 6, so go ahead and write, let's just say you're gonna write a check out for $159.20.
I don't even know how I would write that.
Okay, so in the numeric part where the dollar sign is, you're gonna do the numeric part, so you're gonna just write 159, and then either a
But you could
dot,
put a
20.
1 before that if I didn't write it out, and it would become 1,159.
Oh, okay.
Or
now I
That's
you
called,
can-
yeah.
So that's why you
just
write
that's why-
it out. Yeah.
Right, so, okay,
Yeah.
so you're gonna write the $159 and then .20, or like you said, it's always been that way as long as when I grew up, then you put the 20/100s.
Okay.
Like this?
Well, I had to write my
Uh-huh.
check for
Yep.
120,000.
Yeah,
I wrote it
or,
for
yeah,
120.
yeah, and then
And
sometimes, like I said,
everyone's
some
like,
people do it like what she's talking about, 159.
So, and do you guys know if there's a difference in what you put in the numeric and what you've written out longhand? Which one takes precedence, do you know?
They wouldn't cash
Could be
it when I did it once.
Yeah, they can be a little bit picky.
I mean, it was a big difference.
Technically, the written one is the legal amount.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's why they wouldn't cash it.
So anybody have any other questions about how to go on a check? Okay, well, so that's that, and then in the long, across here, yeah, then you have to write it out at the, $159 and then the 20 cents. Any questions?
If there's like,
I'm just rounding it down.
if the name on the check is misspelled by like a letter, will that affect it?
In most cases, no.
Okay.
I mean, there again, it's gonna be who you're in front of, and, yeah, if it's just a letter, it's probably not gonna make a difference, but,
But what if I gave this check to Chris to cash?
Yeah.
and it's.
It says Melissa Arias.
Whose name's in it?
Mine.
Well, then he's trying to commit fraud.
He's
Yeah.
Just establishing.
So I'll tell you what, we
But you can't do that, it is fraud.
The other day, we had somebody in our drive up and they were trying to cash a check, drawn off from a business. And, the teller could tell that it was, a fake check. Okay, that it wasn't on, the signature didn't match our customer, it wasn't, the number wasn't in sequence, things like that. So they called the customer, found out that it was a fake check, and so as they're sitting there, they called the police, and the police came in and arrested him. So, that's why you don't.
It wasn't me. This wasn't my scenario.
Like, let's just say you get a refund, or your mom cashes it for you, or your mom is like, oh, just put, and I'm just coming up with situations, or
Yeah.
your friend owes you money, you're committing fraud, you can't do that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so, anyway.
I didn't know that
So-
serious.
What
My
if, like,
mother-in-law
say
did it.
my mom, it gives me a check under her name and gives me her card, her debit card to deposit under her account, is that possible?
Well, yeah, I mean, she's giving you access to that. I mean, we don't encourage anybody using anybody else's stuff, but we know as parents and kids and stuff, maybe they're having you do that stuff. But certainly, when you have your own
Your
accounts,
signature.
do not, and we were gonna get into
and that's
this.
the
Yeah.
next
The
thing
next
on our
thing is
list.
about fraud, is not giving your codes, your online banking codes, your debit card code to anybody. Cause I can't tell you how many times I've seen friends, parents, kids, whatever, they end up having some issues and stuff and they start stealing money. And so you wanna keep you wanna keep those codes to
I
yourself.
have one last question, and I don't know how everybody is here, but does everyone here have a signature? Like, an actual signature?
It's not pretty.
No,
That's the one that I've
pretty.
been doing for years.
But
I
I
require it to be pretty.
yeah, I just, some people don't have
Just
signatures
has to
anymore, so I didn't know how
match
that
each time.
worked. If you,
You have to do a cursor signature, yes. You can't print your signature.
and so
Is there any class to like learn how to
I will
do
show
that?
you how to do it. I literally taught
Can you look nice?
I've taught my 6-year-old,
Yeah.
we will teach you.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't teach it in school anymore, do they?
Yeah, first I that's my husband, we went through the lines.
That's fine, but it has to be the same every time.
They don't even teach like cursive anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
I
don't
never
because
learned
it's not used, but in the business world, you will use that, when you sign a legal contract, which Lamont and, we'll get into when he talks about business loans and stuff, we're not gonna let you print your name, you're gonna need to sign it. In any legal contract, mortgage, well, you probably do DocuSign now, but everything has to be a signature or electronic signature, so. But anyway, we kinda got off on that, but
Yeah.
we'll get back to Patty here, cause I know we're running over our time frame here.
And I just really want to emphasize one of the ways that you can access your account is debit card. That debit card is as important as cash. So you need to protect that. You need to protect the card. You need to protect your PIN. You don't share that with anyone. One of the reasons you don't share that is if some fraudulent charge comes through your account, one of the questions you're going to be asked is, have you shared your PIN? If you answer yes, the bank's likely not going to cover your fraud. So,
Speaking of that,
on that topic, how much does the bank help you like get your money back? Like, how much are they liable to help you with?
There's no certain amount that they're liable to, but if you've followed all of the policies with your card, you've kept it secure, they are gonna go through the system, back through the system, and try to find out where the fraud began. They also, if you followed all of the rules, will give you what they call provisional credit. So they'll give you the money back in your account as long as through their investigation, everything is the way that you said it was, you'll get to keep that money. If along the way they find out, well, hey, he gave that card to his roommate, then they may pull that money back.
So they do an in-depth
They
investigation
do.
on that?
Mm-hmm.
And as consumers, so if you're not a business, so if it's not a business, so as consumers, this is another reason to watch your statements, pay attention to what's going on in your account, because let's just say it's is there such a thing as legitimate fraud, but it wasn't anybody you knew. Somebody came in, got your, cause all that somebody needs is your account number and the bank routing number, which is, easy to get, and then they can come in and electronically try to take money out of your account. So you wanna be watching for that. That's why you should go into online banking, pay attention to what's going on. And so as a consumer, and don't quote me on this so we can get you the for sure right answer, but I think you have 60 days after your statement is cut to say, hey, I've had fraud on my account.
I thought it was 3.
3 what, days?
3 days.
No, you've got longer. You
'Cause
do
you're-
have at least a statement cycle, but I
Yeah.
think 60 is the correct. And but if you come in, 6 months from now and say, hey, I just noticed this, the bank may not.
They'll try to get your money back, but the odds of getting it back are very slim. Now, if you're a business owner, those rules change one day.
Wow.
So it's very, same thing, they're still gonna try to get your money back. And I'll tell you guys, we see fraud every single day, and not just one. We're talking probably 40,
And
50.
ECF, we've had fraud on our debit cards, and it's probably from using it on an online site, or we've bought something for ECF. Cause we've had a tremendous amount, not a tremendous amount, but that's impactful.
It is.
Mhm.
It really is.
And sorry, how are they able to draw money from your account based off of just the routing and the account number? How does that
Well,
work?
does anybody have a gym membership or something like that? And what do you do when they usually want you to pay it automatically out of your account, right? So you give them your account number and your routing number, and you sign this thing that says that's how you're gonna do it. So that's, that's a simple answer, but that's how they're doing it. People that are out there trying to do fraud, they use whatever you wanna call them, they're always one step
Yeah,
ahead
they are.
Yeah.
of everybody.
They
Yeah.
paid themselves with my ECF debit card on Fiverr, which is like when you do favors and stuff for people, and they just kept paying themselves overnight when I wasn't checking. I mean, we check it rather regularly. But 2 a.m, they started paying themselves, and so they got the cash. And I certainly wasn't going on there at 2 a.m. and paying somebody. And they caught it eventually, but that's how it happened. They just paid themselves, and it went to somebody's account.
Oh, so they do it based off through businesses like Fiverr and stuff
Yeah,
like
sometimes like that. Sometimes you had it on your account where they bought themselves stuff on, I'll say, Amazon or something
Yeah.
like that. And so it could be anything, and it's so much, it's really hard to do.
Well, and like
Baby gap.
you can pull up
Yeah.
at the gas station and put your debit card in, and they put devices on there that are really hard to detect,
I've
and
seen
it
that.
skims all your information off your card. I mean, they're just always thinking.
Do you think that scenarios like how Melissa was saying, they just kind of you put in your debit card information for an online order and they steal it from there? Do you think it would be better to use your credit card instead of your debit?
Absolutely.
So yes, you have better, you have more rights with your credit card as far as getting those funds returned.
And then if those funds are not in that bank account, you don't have those funds. So if you need to take out $10, that $10 might not be there. But your credit card will be like, all right, we'll put that on hold. So you're not getting interest and things like that on it. But if your cash isn't there and your landlord only takes cash usually, you now can't pay your landlord. So that's where you have to be really careful, or not keeping it in your checking account and keeping it in your savings account that might not be connected in a certain way. So just to make sure that cash is safe, because that's harder to get back, and when you don't have it, you don't have it.
And it might take 30, 60, 90 days to get money back. So yeah, so very good point, is to make sure that you have
Yeah.
that, but, and that's a good question that you ask. Credit card's always the best way, especially with online orders. You can't have a better way of paying for it. I don't pay anything online with my debit card at all, so I always have my credit card.
Good pointers. Let's talk about, what happens, anybody know what the abbreviation OD or NSF means?
Overdraft?
Overdraft,
Good.
yeah,
Very
good,
good.
and non-sufficient funds
Took me a
is
minute.
NSF, yeah.
We won't ask how you know.
So we've
I'll give you $20.
talked a lot about how you need to keep track of your account, and that is exactly why, so you don't end up overdrawn. The bad thing about overdrawn is the bank's gonna charge you a fee, so you're short on money, so then the bank's gonna add a fee on top of that. And then probably the person you wrote the check to, if it's a business, they're gonna charge you a fee, so like you're triple in the hole. Just a really costly, hard cycle to get out of, so that's why it's so important to know what you have in your account, what's cleared, and what's still outstanding, so. Let's see. So ATMs, anybody used an ATM? Yep, okay. So that's pretty familiar, walk up, put your card in, put how much money you want. One thing I would caution you about is try to use an ATM that's sponsored by your bank. Because if you walk down the street and I put my Bank of Nevada card in US Bank, they're gonna charge me a fee. So, I mean, just keep all of your money that you can, don't give it away. And then in your folder, the last 2 pages are about fraud. And we've already had a pretty good discussion about fraud, so I won't go super in depth here, but one of the things I really want to emphasize is your debit card code, don't give that out. Don't give your online banking credentials to anyone. They could go in and wipe out your accounts. Other things that people don't think about, don't leave your checks laying around. Don't leave your wallet laying around. Maybe your roommate has a friend over that you don't know, or, you know, whatever. We see all of those kinds of things, like the person's like, I never thought this would happen to me, but it does. Make sure if you have mail coming in, that it's in a secure mailbox. We see a lot of check fraud with stolen checks coming in. They have technology where they can take a check, wipe out the original payee and amount, but leave the signature. So it matches bank records when the teller goes to check, but the check's altered for a way larger amount to a different payee. And then just never share your social security number unless it's for business purpose, because that's gonna follow you the rest of your life. If somebody gets in there and steals your identity and ruins your credit, it can take years to fix that, so. That kind of finalizes June and I's portion. We've got a couple giveaways here. If you wanna pass your, deposit tickets up, we'll draw a
With your
couple
name on it.
names.
Yeah.
Gotta have your name on it.
And then we'll go.
Any questions while we do that?
Run a check, either one. You just write whatever. You put your name on it.
Did, oh, you put it on here? Everybody got
Nobody
this?
decided.
It's 2 ladies over there.
Okay.
I didn't sign it,
You didn't sign it? Oh, it's mine then.
It's Roy, did we just go over this? I'm just kidding.
Let's see, what do you have?